I'm Beverly Everett, Music Director of the Bismarck Mandan Symphony Orchestra, welcoming you to today's Bismarck Mandan Symphony Orchestra podcast. We've been listening to some beautiful music from Romeo Cascarino, specifically his Blades of Grass for English horn, string orchestra, and harp, one of the pieces that will be featured on our upcoming BMSO concert. I first learned of the music of Romeo Cascarino a couple of years ago. He's not a well-known composer. He was based in Philadelphia and quite a prolific composer, but not someone whose music was played often and not someone whose reputation was as widespread as he probably deserved. His music was championed by a man named Tom DiNardo, who's a wonderful friend of mine. Tom is a longtime music critic in Philadelphia, friend of Romeo and Romeo's wife, Dolores. And Tom loved this music so much and helped it to get some performances. Probably Romeo's magnum opus, if you will, is an opera that he wrote about William Penn. And then he wrote just numerous beautiful symphonic pieces. Tom turned great conductor and one of my mentors, Joanne Folletta, onto Romeo's music. And she too loved it so much that she decided to get a professional recording done of that. So they put together a group of musicians in Philadelphia. It is called the Philadelphia Philharmonia. That's just a name that they created for the group that recorded it, and recorded it in Tom's son's church in Philadelphia. But Naxos did the recording, and it's just a wonderful CD of this beautiful music. All of Romeo's music has a just lyrical, tonal, spiritual quality, a little bit remembrance of Aaron Copland type music, but evoking images. Some of his music is tied to literature. Next year we're doing a piece of his, a full orchestral piece called Pygmalion. We're really excited to do that. But I love his music because it is so beautiful and I think reaches the ear in just a pleasant way and also reaches the heart in a great way. And I especially fell in love with this piece, Blades of Grass. Now, I should tell our listeners, honestly, that I'm a little biased towards Blades of Grass for two reasons. One is that someone did an organ transcription for Blades of Grass to be played on organ with English horn, and so I've gotten to perform that. And then the other is that he features the English horn. The English horn is a beautiful instrument of the orchestra. I have with me today Tonya Mertz, who will be our soloist this week when we perform the piece. But it is just a lovely piece to feature that instrument. Just a little more about the piece before we get to Tonya. Blades of Grass is inspired by or based on a poem called Grass by Carl Sandburg, written in 1918. And I'll just read that for you. Pile the bodies high at Austerlitz and Waterloo. Shovel them under and let me work. I am the grass. I cover all. And pile them high at Gettysburg and pile them high at Ypres and Verdun. Shovel them under and let me work. 2 years, 10 years, and passengers ask the conductor, "What place is this? Where are we now? I am the grass. Let me work." That poem is obviously about buried soldiers from World War I. But Romeo wrote Blades of Grass in 1942 during World War II, and that's part of our program. All of the music on this week's concert was written during that time period. And again, you will really love this work. We'll hear a little more of it later on, but right now I want to introduce Tonya Mertz. Tonya is a great friend of mine. I'll just throw in a little side bit that Tonya planted the seed for my interest in running, and so she's the one that started that, which has become a great passion of mine. Tremendous musician, oboist teacher, our principal oboist in the BMSO, but featured on English horn in this piece. And Tonya is going to tell us a little bit about the English horn, I think we'll start. Welcome, Tonya.
Thank you.
And we'll start with hearing one of the most famous excerpts for the English horn in orchestral music, which is the Largo from Antonin Dvorak's New World Symphony. Thank you, Tonya. And now we'll visit a little bit as you tell us about the English horn and where it came from and how you came to play it.
All right. The English horn is a member of the oboe family. So it is a like double reed, just like the oboe, and it is in the key of F as opposed to C, which the oboe is. So if the oboe would be considered the soprano member of the family of oboe, the English horn would be the tenor, because there is an oboe d'amore, which is in between the two. The English horn sort of developed in the mid-18th century. It's called the cor anglais, which is French for English horn, but the English horn is not French and it's not English. It kind of developed from the oboe da caccia. Which is a more ancient curved oboe, and they put a bulb-like bell onto that instrument, and then eventually it straightened out. And the region of the world where that developed more so would be in the Polish area and the Czech area. So it's that I've read one source that said that the cor anglais name was attached to it because it so resembled the look of the instruments in a lot of artwork with the angelic artwork in the instruments that they would be playing. The English horn is very similar to the oboe. The fingerings are pretty much the same. It's much larger, it's straight and long, and it has the double reed, but it also has a bocal, just like the bassoon has. It's a short little bocal, and so the reed is attached to that as opposed to having cork on the end of the reed and inserted into the instrument like on the oboe. And it's a lot different playing the English horn, even though it is so similar with the same fingerings. It's just the tendencies are so different. So the notes that will want to be free-flowing on the oboe will be more resistant on the English horn, and your pitch tendencies are way different. So the English horn is a very common member of the orchestra. Not always known that it's back there, but there's hardly a concert we play that doesn't require it somewhere. The second oboist would be the oboist that tends to play it in the orchestra on a regular basis. The music that the English horn would play in an orchestral situation would be put into the second oboe's part. So they would switch back and forth a lot. And on bigger pieces, you'll have a separate English horn part. I know that in our coming up concert, one of our pieces is like that. But that is also a fun challenge for the oboist because, like I said, the tendencies are different, the size is different, the reed size is different. So when you're going back and forth, sometimes within a few measures, it's a fast adjustment that you have to make. But the tone quality of the English horn is just lush and beautiful and dark and deep and pastoral, and it's just an amazing instrument to be played as a solo, and unfortunately it's not played as much as a featured solo. So I'm very, very excited and honored to have the opportunity to play Blades of Grass on Saturday and to have everybody experience that. There's so many people that don't know anything about it, and so they'll get to see that.
Tonya, I want to put you on the spot a little bit. I want to ask you a question. So as a conductor, everybody knows that the concertmaster is kind of the right-hand person for the conductor. I mean, they're our transfer of a lot of musical ideas and gestures to the rest of the orchestra. But the principal oboist, I feel, and the conductor also have this kind of special cosmic relationship, because the principal oboist carries a very important job at every concert. Why don't you tell us what that is?
Well, it's the job that allows me to ensure the orchestra never starts without me. I don't know how many times I'm running late and I say, wait for me. And they say, don't worry, we can't start without you. Because I give the A. I tune the orchestra. So the concertmaster will stand and ask for my A, and then I play it, and everybody will tune to that note. And I've thought about that many times. It's something I've never really asked any of my professors, like, why exactly is it the oboe? But my thought would be more, the tone of the oboe really does carry. We do not tune our instruments. We tune our reeds when we make them. And so we don't pull in or push in. Our instrument that's it. And you use your air and your embouchure. You just have to know how to do it. So I think we're a bit more stable and steady in that way too. And it's a good job.
Well, I know as a conductor, that's kind of the moment you're backstage and, you've done all this preparation and you're ready to go on. And when you hear the oboist give that A, I mean, that's kind of the moment where you think, if there is a trap door anywhere, or, I'd rather be at Taco Bell, or whatever thoughts may go through your head, that's the moment that they occur. And I also just want to say that it is an important job, and you do it beautifully and perfectly, because, you're on the spot right at that moment.
Yes, you are. And there's actually a technique that I do teach my students, too, to doing it. You don't just belt out an A. You have to sneak it in, and you want it to kind of... I usually start my A just a bit under and bring it into on tune so that it's not, you guys don't hear all my adjusting to get it right where I want it. And truth be told, I do have my tuner right on my stand. So, I have that tool necessary.
And I should also point out that it's not just a one-time deal. So like in our orchestra and in many orchestras, they ask you for 4 A's right in that moment. I know I've heard some concerts, this has been a long time ago in a place far, far away, nowhere near Bismarck, where each A the oboist gave was a little different.
Oh my.
And I thought, wow, that's generous kind of in a way you don't want. And so it is a sense of pressure and a big responsibility that I don't think a lot of people know what's going on up there when you're doing it, and it is a hugely important part of the concert. Even though it in and of itself is not a piece of music, but it's one of the most important moments, and you do it great.
Thank you. It's afforded me the opportunity to play my most favorite April Fool's joke. I've been able to do it twice, and I would never do it at a concert. But it so happened we, in 2 different occasions, had a rehearsal on April Fool's Day. So I play a B flat instead. I just love, and it's always, that look of when they realize at first that they're not really out of tune that bad. It's me. It's kind of fun. So, yeah.
Good to know. I'll have to.
I know. I shouldn't give away all my
check
secrets.
My calendar and see when we have some rehearsals coming up. Well, Tonya, it's great to have you here, and an honor to work with you and have you in the orchestra.
It's my pleasure.
And a wonderful experience this week when we hear Blades of Grass by Romeo Cascarino. It's kind of a tiny piece in the context of our program, and I'm afraid it will get lost. And I know what will happen at the concert is that I believe that's the piece people will actually leave saying, I want to hear more of this Cascarino composer. Mm-hmm. And what a gorgeous piece this is. And so I'm kind of excited to get that emotion from the audience on Saturday evening, because I just know that this little gem tucked away between 2 of the giant pieces of Aaron Copland is going to be one of the most remembered pieces, not just from this concert, but I think from this season. So very excited about that. One last thing is that Romeo Cascarino's widow, Dolores, is still living and is so excited to have her husband's music played and has been emailing me just with great love and affection and gratitude that we're doing this work. Her schedule doesn't allow her to be here for this concert, but she's hoping to come next year when we do another of his pieces. So that's special when we can have that kind of personal connection to the composer. So as we leave this podcast, I thank you for listening, and we'll listen to a little more of Blades of Grass as we close out. And just a reminder that you can visit us online at bismarckmandansymphony.org, where you will find notes to today's podcasts. You can subscribe to our podcasts and hear them there, and also find out other information about everything that we have going on. So thank you again for listening, and thank you, Tonya.
Thanks for having me.